What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Raptor Report. It's time to talk about the Toronto Raptors because there are some updates regarding the Toronto Raptors. It is being rumored that the Raptors may make a couple moves, and there's also a new update regarding Pascal Siakam, which I will be discussing as well. So if you're ready to watch this video, guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you wish to hit the like button as well, that'd be very much appreciated. So with that being said, let's get right into today's video. Now, as you guys know, I do like to give out shout outs on my channel, and the shout out for today's video goes out to Todd Stevens. So Todd, thank you so much for supporting this channel. To your likes and comments, it is very much appreciated. Now let's get to rumor number one here, and shout out to Raptors Update on Instagram for providing this update. And it was reporting that Raptors are still exploring another move or two, and this is according to Mark Stein. And I nonetheless came up with from my time at the Summer League in Las Vegas with the distinct impression that the Raptors are still exploring another move, maybe even two, Mark Stein said. Now, I'm not really surprised. This is, what we're hearing with the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, a lot of people feel like we need another point guard on this team as well. And there have been rumors that the Raptors may look to add another point guard via free agency. They've also been linked to Ayo Dosunmu, who's a restricted free agent as well. But I think this is most very likely to happen, that the Raptors will very likely cut Joe Weeks' camp. They'll make some minor signings, but I do expect a trade to come. Now, whether that's Pascal Siakam or not, I'm going to discuss that later when we discuss Pascal Siakam's update regarding his trade situation. But I also think the Raptors could explore some other options when it comes to trade. They could look to move guys like I was about to say Trae Young, definitely not him, but Thaddeus Young. You got someone like a Chris Boucher, and you've got a kind of a logjam when you think about the Raptors bench situation there. You got Christian Koloko at the 5, you got Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher, both at the 4th position. You can play Precious a little bit at the 5 as well. I don't know how I feel about that, given that you do want to give Christian Koloko a lot of minutes, and given the fact that we have Darko Rajakovic, who is obviously a developmental coach. So this is going to be a little bit of a difficult situation. And when you round up the Raptors bench, let's use this as an example. Assuming Dennis Schroeder is our starting point guard, you got Malachi Flynn. Again, assuming the Raptors don't sign any more point guards, you got Malachi Flynn, you got Gary Trent Jr., you got Grady Dick there as well. And then, again, at the power forward position, you got Chris Boucher or Precious, and then you got Christian Koloko. But there's one issue as well. The Raptors have also signed Jalen McDaniels as well. So it becomes a little bit tricky now. Like, where are you placing Jalen McDaniels? Obviously, you want to give him some minutes as well. You didn't just sign him to ride him on the bench. I think he's a young player that you could work in your system. He's not going to, I don't think statistically, I don't think he's going to be that impressive if you're just looking at stats. I think his defense will impact, but I think it's one of those players that you want in your system so you can develop his skills a little bit more, moving forward. But in terms of a logjam, the Raptors do have a little bit of a logjam at the power forward position. And I think if you truly wish to develop, which it seems like the Raptors do want to do with the hiring of Darko, then you've got to be able to move off someone like a Chris Boucher. I know everyone's going to argue that, well, Chris Boucher has been one of your more consistent bench players. And while I do agree, I think ultimately you've got to make some moves to kind of free up a little bit more minutes for guys like Precious Achiuwa off the bench. And again, also Jalen McDaniels as well. I think you need to provide, obviously, him some playing time as well. So it gets a little bit tricky. I think the Raptors maybe look to move someone like a Chris Boucher for a point guard as well. I think that could happen. Maybe provide a little bit of shooting in the guard position. So I think I could see the Raptors doing something like that. But in terms of their salary cap situation as well, we do need to take that into consideration. And let's take a look at the Raptors salary cap here. Now, taking a look at the Raptors salary cap situation, you see they're the 13th highest salary cap in the entire NBA, making their entire league. And this is updated with all of the contracts we have. It's at about $163 million. And I believe the NBA salary cap for next season is at about $136 million. So obviously the Raptors, are a little bit close to the luxury tax. They want to move a little bit further away from that, which is one of the reasons why they could be looking to move off of Pascal. But I just think you need to be able to shed some salaries on the bench there. You got Thaddeus Young, who's, making $8-9 million. You got Chris Boucher, who's making about $11-12 million as well. That alone is about $20 million, which would save the Raptors a lot of money. So I think you've got to be able to move off some of those contracts like that. Now, I don't know if the Raptors will get an attractive trade for, someone like a Thaddeus Young, just because he really has no value. He's also on the older side as well. I think you give him some playing time, build a little bit of value up. And I think in the NBA, expiring contracts are so valuable when we discuss those. So you can always move him further down the line. But I think Chris Boucher is someone, some teams could definitely use some size out there. And maybe there's a guard out there the Raptors could look to target. So those are my thoughts on that. Again, I don't necessarily see the Raptors making huge free agent signings. There isn't really much out there. Again, the biggest signing I could see them make is maybe sign Ayo Dosunmu to a restricted or offer sheet, I should say, because he is a restricted free agent. So again, besides that, I don't know how much they can offer him, how much they're willing to offer him in terms of money as well. But I think he could obviously be one player I'd definitely keep my eyes on. But let's talk about Pascal Siakam because he's been in the news time and time again, and he was in the news today again. Now, it's being reported again by Mark Stein. Pascal Siakam is not interested in signing a contract extension with any team that trades for him. Reported by Mark Stein, the All-Star forward has continued to signal an unwillingness to sign an extension with any team that trades for him. Siakam has 1 year left on his contract at nearly $38 million and has made it clear that he prefers to stay with a team that drafted him 27th overall in 2016. Now, I do want to say I've seen a lot of comments online by Raptors fans labeling him as selfish. Even those comments on that page, they're stating that, well, if he wants to stay with the Raptors, why does he not take less money? Look, ask yourselves this question genuinely. I know people are going to say, well, he's a millionaire. Why doesn't he just take a few million less? Do teams, when they're trading players, do they look at the benefit of a player? Very rarely, very rarely. I'm not saying they don't, but very rarely do you see that because they're looking for benefiting them in the future, the team's success, everything about it, and whether that includes salary cap situation as well. So even if that's the case, why would Pascal take a few million off to stay with the Raptors? He has been one of 5 players in the NBA this past season to average 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. The other 4 players besides Pascal to do that, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So if that doesn't tell you how valuable Pascal Siakam is in terms of, what he can do on the floor on the offensive side, I know his defense wasn't the greatest, but he's got that speed, he's got the rebounding ability and the passing ability as well. And personally, if you ask me, I think worst comes to worst, you extend him now and then look to trade him in the future. You'll get a lot more back knowing that he has more than 1 year left on his contract, and you're just not going to get a lot in return. Let's be honest. Maybe a team does give up a lot, but if Pascal is clearly stating that, I don't know how much a team is foolish enough to give up for, a player that's clearly saying he's not going to re-sign with that team. So, and regarding Pascal Siakam situation as well, I think you also just need to give the players a chance because I don't necessarily think, even if you decide to rebuild, there's not one player on the Raptors roster that's a true number 1 option. So you're essentially forcing everyone into this role they're not comfortable in or are not ready for. OG Anunoby, as much as he wants a bigger role, he can do that with Fred VanVleet now gone. He can be legitimately the 3rd option. And that's not a bad role for OG Anunoby. And you can slowly work him up. You know what? Maybe in the future, if he shows improvement the next season, then you can take a step further. I think with Fred moving off of this team has more opportunities for guys like Gary, for OG that definitely want bigger roles. And you can obviously have Scotty as your number 2 option as well. So this isn't bad where the roster is right now. I think the Raptors should at the very least give Pascal and Scotty the chance to play together. I know it may not look pretty at times, but you've got a new head coach. Let him implement a system and give him a player who is a really good producer on the offensive side. Now, I know he's not a number 1 option, and people are going to be mad when we say, why give him such money when he is not a true number 1 option? Look around the league. When you look at guys that are making so much money, in fact, let's talk about it. Taking a look at the salary cap situation here for some of the highest paid players in the NBA, you'll notice that some of the highest paid players in the NBA aren't true number 1 options. Now, does that mean just because you're not a true number 1 option that you should either get traded or not get paid the right amount of money? Absolutely not. Like taking a look across the list here, you obviously got Steph, Durant, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Joel Embiid, but after that, you take a look at some of the players that are making the money they are. Bradley Beal is not worth $46 million. Paul George, as good as he is, definitely not in the category of some of the top paid players in the entire NBA. He's not a number 1 option. He's a great number 2 option. But even besides that, like Damian Lillard is good. He's proven he can't be a true number 1 option. Klay Thompson, Rudy Gobert, and Fred VanVleet, definitely not. Anthony Davis, Trae Young, Zach LaVine are not number 1 options. Most of these guys are number 2 options, but they're going to get paid. Salaries are increasing in the NBA, and I can't state this enough. When we look at contracts now, it looks terrible. We've gone through this in the history of the Raptors. When the Raptors signed OG to that $17-18 million contract, it looked downright terrible. And then the following seasons, you realize how good that looked because salaries in the NBA are constantly, every 4 to 5 years, they're changing dramatically. So yes, that money looks incredibly high now, but in the future, 2 seasons from now, it doesn't. So again, I can't emphasize enough on that when we talk about, players. Even though he's a number 2 option, he's getting paid. And if anything, what we should take away from this is that Pascal wants to stay in a beautiful city in an organization like the Toronto Raptors, which has given him a lot, and he's given a lot to them as well. He's a very hardworking player. He's constantly improved every season. besides, that second half of the bubble season, understandably, he was in a lockdown. He was dealing with mental health issues as well, and he didn't get the chance to practice at all. So again, it's the player you need to give an opportunity to. I'm very curious to see how Scotty and Pascal played together with Fred VanVleet now gone. And you got Dennis Schroeder, guys. Don't underestimate him. He's a pass first point guard, which is something myself and a lot of Raptors fans have been sitting this entire season. That would be the perfect fit with the Raptors because the Raptors have too many ball dominant players that need the ball in their hand to be effective. So I think Dennis is going to do great with the starting lineup. I mean, obviously, you would want a little bit more shooting in there, but I think the Raptors will be very interesting. And I really hope we at the very least, get the chance to see Pascal and Scotty. Again, worst comes to worst, you can trade Pascal next offseason. So those are my thoughts on Pascal. I know people are calling him selfish. I think that's ridiculous. I did post something on Twitter recently. If you want to go check that out, follow me on my Twitter account. It's linked in my account here. So again, that's my thoughts. I do have a trivia question as well for you guys, but I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are based on what you think the Raptors may do in terms of moves and with the Pascal Siakam situation as well. So let's get into let's get into the trivia question for today. And the trivia question for today is, which player led the Raptors Summer League in points per game? Was it A, Marquise Noel? Was it B, Grady Dick? Was it C, Ron Harper Jr.? Or was it D, Moses Brown? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for supporting this channel through your likes and comments. It is very much appreciated. And I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.